I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The online thing is working?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Fine.
Okay, I'll call the regular meeting to order. The first thing is to approve the minutes from September 3rd. We did not have a meeting. We had no agenda items in October, beginning of October. So these are the minutes from our September meeting. Does anybody have any questions or comments or corrections on those? No? Staying. I was absent. Okay, understood. So I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
Second.
All in favor? With one abstention. All right, the first item is Tuxedo Reserve. And who wants to give us the introduction? The first item for Tuxedo Reserve is a 6-month extension of the site plan and MPD approvals for the Commons and Quail Road. Only 4 buildings, buildings 5, 6, 14, 15. We don't need a real description of those. You maybe just point them out. Sure.
So I think both Brad and Mitch are trying to log in right now.
And I'll give you this.
Sure. But I can certainly point out where the commons area is, it's right here. And we are asking for the 6-month extension of the commons, and Quail Road is right here. It enters on Route 17, comes up into the center of the site. And then there's also the extension that goes through the village of Sloatsburg parcel back out to 17.
Okay. At the end of the 3 Tuxedo Reserve items, I'll ask either Mitch or is Brad going to join?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll ask them to give us an update on the project in total, just where we're at, briefly. So does anybody have any questions about this extension? No. Just briefly, why is it necessary? I know you're not as far along as you wanted to be, but that's the reason.
Yes, so there's still a couple outside agency approvals that we're working on securing. We are moving forward with, obviously the site plan approvals for the various phases, but we're also here tonight to discuss the special permit amendment as well. So there's a couple things that are still getting worked out.
And we have done this before for other aspects of Tuxedo Reserve, so it's not like it's unique. So nobody has any questions, I'll make a motion to approve that 6-month extension.
Which brings it to your April 1st, 2025 meeting.
I didn't get the beginning of that, Kelly.
Sorry, it goes to April 1st, 2025.
Okay. Second, all in favor?
Yep.
Okay. The next item is another extension of the East Terrace clearing, filling, and grading permit. Just point out where that is.
Yes, so East Terrace is right here, and this is an area that was being proposed to use for some staging. So I think Brad is now on, if there's anything else they'd like to add.
Nope, that wraps up that extension request.
Okay. Anybody have any questions about this?
Mr. Chairman, I just
This
have to say,
one, okay, sorry, go ahead, Sean.
under your code, clearing, filling, and grading permits require a public hearing, so they originally get a 12-month approval, and then if they want another 12-month extension for that, it requires a public hearing. So I think unless Kelly advises you otherwise, I think the only thing you can do is to schedule a public hearing for your next meeting.
That's correct.
What about if it's a 6-month extension?
Any extension of it requires a public hearing.
Anything? Okay. All right, so the only thing we can do is schedule the public hearing.
Correct.
Does that preclude the applicant from doing anything until that public hearing? I mean, does it expire?
It really becomes an enforcement issue for the building department if and it's in their discretion if they enforce it or not, if they're doing clearing and filling and grading activities without an approval resolution. I don't think that the applicant will have a problem, but I can't speak on behalf of the building inspector. But it would be scheduling a public hearing for your December 3rd meeting.
There's no such thing as a temporary extension
No,
without the public hearing.
correct.
I have a question.
Sure.
Is there any liability for that interim period if anything should occur? Because it's not, I don't wanna say it's illegitimate, but they're not covered. Is that correct?
They would not be covered, no.
So is there any liability if a problem occurred?
Well, it wouldn't so much be liability, it would be that they would be in violation of the code, and so the building inspector could bring them to justice court for an action.
But when officially does it end? The current one?
The current one ends October, I have the 5th was the date of signature. So it's lapsed right now.
Are there any activities ongoing now?
Nothing specific in East Terrace,
Okay.
so I'm sure we can hang in there till the December meeting.
Okay, that was what, the 5th, Kelly? Our next meeting, the 5th?
This December 3rd.
The 3rd? All right, so I'll, anybody have any other questions on this one? So I'll make a motion to schedule a public hearing for the extension of the clearing, filling and grading permit for our meeting on December 3rd.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The final, Tuxedo Reserve item is, a special permit amendment that needs to be, reviewed and, considered by the town board. We have to refer that to the town board. So would somebody explain, that?
Mitch will do the.
So I think, Mr. Chairman, I'll give a brief intro. So good to see you all. As you mentioned, we did submit an application to the town board end of September for certain amendments to the special permit of 2022, the preliminary plan that was also approved in 2022, and the local law that was adopted that same year. Mitch and Ashley will walk you board through the proposal, through the amendments. I just want to emphasize right up front that the overall maximum unit count and bedroom count will stay exactly the same. So the changes are really to product type and location within those upper thresholds. So we made a presentation to the town board last week. We're here, as you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, on a referral to the planning board. The town board did schedule a public hearing for November 13th. So we're hopeful following tonight's presentation, your board will be positioned to send back a positive referral to the town board in advance of that public hearing. And so I'll turn. Mitch?
Oh, hi, and thank you for the courtesy of allowing us to appear by Zoom this evening. We're trying not to make a habit of it. It just the schedule certainly just didn't align this evening. So thank you, Brad. Again, Mitch Newman with Lennar. So what we want to do tonight in kind of a hybrid situation is, I believe, Ashley, you have the 2 presentation boards up, the original and the revised.
Yes.
Okay. I could put them up on the screen, but rather than have you keep looking left and right, Ashley will kind of focus on pointing out what I'm talking about, and I'll continue. And we did this same presentation before the board, so I think we'll be okay even in this situation. I'm going to give you the overview of why we're even doing this, and then Ashley can get into the details. So let's start with the simple fact that the current special permit requires us to add 30 single-family homes. So that was the first hurdle we had to think about. Where are they going to go? The second hurdle was we realized that in East Terrace, the grades were not accommodating several of the home types, specifically the stacked townhomes. So we had to rearrange the homes. You haven't seen East Terrace yet, of course, but we're trying to plan ahead. East Terrace needed some help. and we needed to find 30 additional single-family homes. So to get those two chess pieces to move simultaneously in the right direction, we first started with adding 20 single-family homes to Winding Hill in place of 45 townhomes. And then we changed around the home designs in East Terrace and added in 10 single family. So that got us the 30 singles we needed. But that left us with a net deficit of 86 homes. So the only place to make that up was in the age restricted section, again, a section you haven't seen. And the way to make that up was to go with a higher density home type. And that higher density home type is what we call a 12-plex or a 12-unit condo building. And again, you haven't seen that either, although it is specifically provided for in the current special permit. So when we were able to implement that condo building into the age-restricted section, we were able to make up the deficit of the 86 homes, which is why Brad was able to explain that the bottom line is these changes in the preliminary plan continue to keep the home count exactly as already planned at 1609 and keep the bedroom count exactly the same. So that's the big picture. So it was the goal of making sure we had a community that still worked when we tried to adjust what was happening in East Terrace and add in the single family homes. That fortunately we or you or everybody had the foresight to build in a higher density home type that we could pull off the shelf, so to speak, from the special permit. With that, of course, I'll be happy to answer any detailed questions, but I'd also like to turn it over to Ashley, who can specifically show you which sections went up or down by what home type.
Sure. So overall, the total number of single-family homes in the development went from 269 to 297. And that includes 155 non-age restricted units. As Mitch said, the total bedroom count remained the same. So that was 3,620 bedrooms. And of those, 2,872 are unrestricted. So where the areas primarily changed was down here in East Terrace. The new single-family homes are right here. There were also some adjustments to, for example, the Winding Hill neighborhood. This is now all single-family homes in Winding Hill. And then here's the active adult community. And here are the condo units that Mitch was speaking about. These were considered in the original special permit. They just weren't shown on the plan. But one of the other changes that was in the special permit was there was a requirement for 174 duplex units. Because of this change for more single-family homes and bringing in the condo units, we are proposing to decrease the number of duplex units to 112. So that's what's triggering the special permit amendment as well as the local law change.
That's a question.
Yes.
If my math is right, you have 152 age-restricted single-family homes, is that correct?
That sounds about correct. I have a tally.
100 and go ahead, Ashley. I think it's 142.
All right, my math may be off. Yeah, you're right, you're right. Okay. Those are two-story, three-story?
Single families are 2-story, 2.5 if you count the roof pitch.
Okay. And what's the age restriction? Pardon my ignorance.
55 and older.
Okay. There's, all right. I'm having a little trouble getting up the stairs myself at these days, so I was wondering about that.
Yeah, and in the 2-story configurations, the master bedroom and the primary living space is always on the first floor.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
And the additional 86 you said are condos, so the living is all on one floor?
Well, there's a total of 120 condominiums. I said there are 12-unit buildings, and you can guess
Right.
there's 10 of them. So there are 4 stories, and I can show you an elevation of them unrendered if you'd like. I'll put it up on the screen if you don't mind. Let's hope I can put it up on the screen. Let's start
And that hasn't been formally presented to us yet, as I recall.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And I'm not finding it as fast as I want. So give me a minute to make sure that I have it teed up and find out where the heck I put it.
The concepts were presented to the town board back when we were doing the special permit and it was originally included. But yeah, they were never shown on the plan,
But they will be.
but they will be. Well, they are shown on the plan now.
Yeah.
And then the architectural renderings will be presented to this board when we submit for the active adult community.
But by definition, usually condos are one floor living, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I hope you can see my shared screen now.
We can say it.
Okay, so this is a blueprint from when we first built these 12-plex condominiums in Morris Plains, New Jersey. And that's where a couple of the town board members actually saw them in person. So this is two different front elevations. It's not a front and a back. So when you see from the front, if you counted the garage doors, you'd count 12 garage doors. So behind those 12 garage doors are two condo units. And on the fourth floor, which is only a partial fourth floor, there's no back of the building. It's just two front homes. So that's two on the top, two on the bottom. So that's 4. And the remaining 8 are in the 2 levels. So each level, second and third floor, only has 4 homes each. So it's quite luxurious because there's very limited people on each floor. There is an elevator and it is 1 floor living. Yes, each unit's only 1 level or 1 floor. I could keep scrolling and find the floor plans, but I'm afraid because it's a yeah, it's going to be, there's so much stuff happening in a architectural set, it's hard to see. But this is the first floor. You see the garages up front, and then you see the first 2 homes in the back. And then on the second level, which is the same as the third, you see the 2 homes in the front, 2 in the back. And then on the fourth floor, you see the 2 in the front, and the back is open just to roof area. It's not roof area you can access. So that's how we get to the 12 homes. I'm just scrolling back to the front. And we did specifically provide for this in the special permit. Didn't anticipate we would necessarily need it, but it was something that the board had identified as an interesting home type. And we do use it in our age-restricted communities in New Jersey. Not only you have the privacy of a front door that has a lock, which is in the middle of the building, you have your private garage doors, then you have a private entrance to the hallway, and then your private entrance to your home. So it's quite a nice, secure, large, over 2,000 square foot home living space. Anyway, that's probably way more than you were asking for, but we're actually really excited about it. It's a great home.
Yeah, so we'll get into a detailed review of this when the time comes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Any other questions about this, John? No.
I'm just happy to see the increase in the, single level living.
I have a question for Kelly. They submitted a short EAF for this. Is this gonna trigger a new seeker review, Kelly? Or
So
is that-
the seeker would be handled by the town board and they would have to determine whether or not this could be consistent. They could do a consistency analysis, whether it was consistent with what was previously studied or whether there needed to be additional information provided.
So we don't have to address that.
No, you just have to authorize the drafting of a report. Let me know what you want it to say.
Is that a resolution or just a report?
Just a report. I would write a letter to the town board and CC you on it.
Mr. Chairman, just to give you some comfort and give you some more color, in addition to that short EAF, Ashley did prepare another technical memorandum, just like we did a couple of years ago, to demonstrate that these proposals, the proposed amendments, would not have any new significant adverse environmental impact. So we think we're covered under seeker. Kelly's right, it's the town board's responsibility, not yours, but we did submit all the proper documentation, not just the short EAF.
Okay, thanks, Fred.
Yep.
So does this have to be a motion, Kelly, or?
Yeah, so I mean, if the board doesn't have any more comments, if, you know, Valerie and Sean don't have any comments too, and the board's satisfied, then you would just make a motion to authorize the drafting of a report indicating that the board had no further suggestions to this request.
Okay. Sean or Valerie, you have any?
No, there's no engineering issues in connection with this change, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So I'll make a motion to have Kelly draft this a letter, referring this, change to the town board. Can I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
And then just to wrap up the Tuxedo Reserve item, either Brad or Mitch, can you give us a, couple minutes summary of where you are, where the project is right now? I see that you have a sign. Which is good. I'm interested in whether you have a will serve letter from ONR.
Yes, I will be happy to give you the 2-minute overview. Again, probably more than you're bargaining for. So, and I promise item 6 in my hit parade is Orange Rockland Electric. So, start off with West Terrace. Land development is underway. We do expect initial building permits for the townhomes in November. We're working towards that. And then we would then focus on home deliveries, meaning homes completed for deliveries to customers in the late summer 2025 next year. After that, the next section we plan to take on is Upland Park, and that's for 2026. We still need to post the bonds for Upland Park. The section that we were focusing on a moment ago, the age-restricted section, which we'll call Venue at Tuxedo, we expect to submit those engineering plans December, although that may move to January. We're just trying to fine tune some wetland issues. So you'll see that early 2025. And then, of course, you'll formally see the beautifully rendered condos that I was showing you in architectural form. Because we're hoping to get the building permits beginning in November, that triggers some monetary issues. The first is we have to true up on the balance of the Tuxedo Land Development Corporation payments for the Hamlet revitalization. There is just under 400,000 left for us to pay, so we should be paying that in November. The second monetary item triggered by a first building permit is that we have to pay 50% of the school payment. If you remember, the school payment was 2.5 million. So sometime in November, we'll be paying 1,250,000 to the school district. Fourth item on my hit parade is the Route 17 traffic light and intersection improvements. If you recall, the special permit requires us to have that completed by the first certificate of occupancy, which is trending, as I said, towards the end of the summer 2025. We have resolved some right-of-way issues with DOT. We are sending in or sent in revised plans to them again today. We send them in, they give us comments. It's the way it goes. But we think we are at the end of the line and should be getting that DOT permit in November, which would be a huge accomplishment. And then we got to go through some process with our contractor and DOT and hope to start that work out there in the midwinter, say about late February. And that permit will cover the north and south intersections of Quail Road, as well as a rather large culvert that goes in Route 17 in the Sloatsburg area. Next item on the county side of things, and John, I'll keep going unless you say enough.
No, that's fine.
Okay. All right. So next item is the count. So we had submitted for County Board of Health approval for West Terrace and the Commons. The county slowed us down by asking us to retest all of the water wells in Phase 1A, which covers Phase 1A covers West Terrace, Upland Park, and the Commons. So we did that. It was successful. Thank goodness. That was submitted to the county. Everything tells us that it's looking fine. So we are hopeful to finally get that county approval in November. And just to get ahead of the next wave of county reviews, we did begin the testing of the next 3 wells so that when we get to the age-restricted section, we'll be ahead of the county this time. Next, John, is the Orange Rockland Utility Company. We've had several meetings with them. We think we have honed in on the wattage for the site, which is 12 megawatts. which is much lower than was originally predicted, which is good news for us. We're in the plan design phase with the utility company, and they hope to have the designs completed by December, which is very good news, teeing us up to energize by the summer, which is exactly what we want to do. And so far, it is trending away from any needed substation upgrade or addition. And we do actually have a will serve letter. We hadn't sent it in to you. We can if we probably should, but we got it way early in the game, just as we started meeting with them. And it didn't feel like it was much of a hurdle, because we were still working on whether we needed a substation, whether we needed whether we had the megawatts correct. So Brad, if I haven't shared that with you, I will, and you can formally send it in so that we take that topic off the table. But bottom line is the electric service conversations are going well. I'm knocking wood, but they are going well. Regarding sewer, the only thing there is eventually we will have to expand the sewer plant from approximately 300,000 gallons to approximately 500,000 gallons to serve the entire Tuxedo Reserve. We submitted the application to the state for that permit, so trying to get ahead of that also. I'm told that it's a two-part process. First, you apply for the permit. Once you get the permit, then you submit your engineering design for the upgrade. So we're in the permit process. We're told that that could take about 12 months. And then we're told the design review process could take another 8 to 12 months. So that's why we're trying to get so far ahead in sewer, because as we all know, 18 months unfortunately goes by a little too fast these days. Regarding sales, which we'll be doing starting in the spring, we will be submitting our sales registration application to the state probably in December, so that we can get sales registration set up for April or May and begin sales ahead of those closings. And that's I think that's everything. So lots of balls in the air, and we're driving as hard as we can to start to get to some home closings next year.
Okay, thank you, Mitch. That was good.
Okay, thank you.
Does anybody have any questions on any of that? No.
I have a question. Sure. You didn't mention anything about gas. Is gas a dead issue, or are you hopeful to get gas?
No, gas was a dead issue. They actually said to us we could have gas, but the number to get the required improvements was tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars. And we said, wow, that's impossible. We'd have to have 50,000 homes to even think about that kind of cost. So that did not work. We are all electric, and that's where the people want us to go, on the green side of the equation. So we're going to get there first before any competitors.
So you're gonna run a generator with propane or something?
Well, that's an interesting question. Obviously, if people want a generator, there's a couple of choices. They could opt that. We don't offer generators. The second option is we've had some meetings with the Generac team. They typically, as you've seen on commercials, have generators that run off of a gas line. What Generac has is a solar powered generator. It'll only give you juice for a couple of days, but it's certainly better than having your refrigerator and freezer go on the fritz for a day or so and lose everything. So we've had conversations with them. Apparently there's a solar panel on your roof, and then that connects to a battery can be somewhere in your home, and that's where the power is stored. So it will limit those typical gas generators that folks have, such as myself.
But that's individual people. I mean, you have streetlights, you have all kinds of stuff.
Well, the wells, I believe you have generators for the wells.
Oh, absolutely. For the wells and for the sanitary sewer system, there'll be backup generators. Yes.
And that'll be what, diesel, probably?
I'll say probably.
Okay.
The discussion on the generators, is that for backup, individual backup for the homes?
That would be for individual homeowners to make their own business and personal decision after they purchase the home. We just were trying to understand the issue a little bit. That's why we met with Generac, because we were curious, like you are, as to what do you do if there's no gas service.
and there's space available for the location of generators as well as the fuel supply. I mean, I have a Generac generator that runs on propane,
Yeah, me too.
but I have two 100-gallon propane tanks. And they have to be by code a certain distance from the residence, the structure. So there's space available for that type of thing if people want to opt for that.
Well, that would only be available for those that have single family homes. So we're not going to affirmatively offer it, but it could be available perhaps for the people that have the singles that have a lot they call their own, as opposed to the townhomes or the condominiums, of course.
So everybody else will rely on O&R's electricity for their heating and so forth, or a solar generator.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And then one last thing on this, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sean, you haven't gotten any final drawings based upon our resolutions for your review yet, have you?
That's correct, I haven't received any.
So you're talking about getting building permits in November. You know, before that, Sean has to review those drawings. So hopefully those will start coming and you won't, inundate him with every section in over a course of a few days.
Well, we'll give him a full week. That's how Sean rolls. Understood. We have actually a meeting on Thursday to address these type of issues, and that'll be on the agenda.
Okay. Okay, I don't think we have anything else, for Tuxedo Reserve. You have anything, Ashley, you want to add? Okay, you guys can, drop out.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Our next item is, another extension for, Metro R Services, and I see Scott in the back. This is a 6-lot subdivision off, 7-lot subdivision off, Brook Road.
Sorry, did I stay back there?
Yeah, you can. This is again a 6-month extension of the subdivision approval. We haven't approved site plans for any of the individual lots.
That is correct. We'll come back for site plan approval for each individual lot. Quick overview of the project. It's a 40-acre site, where we're proposing to do a 7-lot cluster subdivision. Lots number 1 and 7, which are the largest on the property, will also be covered with a large portion of the lots will be covered by a conservation easement, which is allowing the cluster subdivision. The access road is proposed to cross Warwick Brook in front onto Warwick Brook Road. The road is supposed to be dedicated to the town upon completion of the project. They're all individual driveways except for 2 lots. 2 lots have shared driveways. That was done to try and conserve space, and stay out of wetland areas, steep topography, whatnot. We're here today looking for a 6-month extension to our subdivision approval. And I can give you a run through of what we've worked on since the last approval in May. So we had received a New York State DEC letter of acknowledgement for a complete NOI. So the project now has coverage under SWIP speedy general permit. Weekly SWIP inspections have started on the site. We met with the town building inspector. At the time, we had not received approval to go on site and do construction. The DEC had issued a violation because a excavator was brought onto the site. They considered that disturbance. At that point in time, we did not have a letter of acknowledgement from the DEC, and we're not covered under SWIP permit. The remedy that they wanted us to do was to file for our NOI, get our SWIP coverage, and install silt fence, a sediment control protective measure on the site. So we met with the building inspector to determine if we could go on the site and install the required ENS controls without needing a CFG permit, clearing, filling, and grading permit from the town. It was determined that we could, so we went out on the site, installed silt fence. Silt fence was installed on the site where needed. No other work has been conducted on the site since. I don't know if everybody remembers from the last time, our big hang-up has been the bridge. So we've discussed the possibility of potentially using a steel bridge with the highway superintendent. He had indicated that he was more he would rather a concrete bridge, but would consider a steel bridge pending review and approval by the town engineer and receipt of a draft maintenance plan. Based upon the discussion with the town highway superintendent, the applicant has decided that we'll return to a concrete bridge because it's kind of a big lift to do a whole steel design and have the possibility that he might not like it and we have to go with concrete first. So he is retaining Garden State Precast to prepare bridge designs to be reviewed by them. That is where we stand right now. We're just looking for extension.
Kelly, can we just grant this or do we need a public hearing on this one?
You can grant it and it would be until May 4th, but the meeting before May 4th is the April 1st meeting, so they should be asking for it for that meeting.
For May 4th.
April 1st.
You want us to be on the April 1st, meeting, correct?
Yeah, be on the April 1st agenda, but your extension is good through May 4th.
Sean or Valerie, have anything?
I don't have anything.
Anybody on the board have any questions about this? No? Okay, so I'll make a motion to extend the subdivision approval until May 4th, right?
I'll second.
Right.
All in favor?
Oh,
Okay, Scott,
Thank you very much.
thank you. Okay, next item is Watchtower modifications of the existing permit.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the board, for allowing us to be on the agenda for the month. Brian Ware with Watchtower. So you received, I believe, our letter dated October 22. Hopefully the board had a chance to look at that. Wanted to petition the board to review the special conditions that we've been operating under at our site for some time. Again, thanking the board for their willingness to make amendments to the site plan to get us where we are in the last year and a half. I know we've had 7 amendments to the resolution. But again, appreciating the fact that with the approved site plan, we've been able to, as you see, restore our necessary driveway access to the stone bridge, which had been in place for many years before. And we worked with, of course, the town and the Orange County Public Works Department to restore that. These are titled together as one title deed. The 7 acres in Tuxedo being with the 240 acres on the Ramapo side. So having them titled together as one, this was the only sole access to the Ramapo parcel. So it's nice to see that we've been able to restore that driveway access. So thank the board for being able to help us with that. The other improvement, which has been of great benefit to the community, is the realignment of the intersection. Originally, the driveway was going to be coming out and creating an odd intersection. So again, one of the amendments was to create an intersection that would be more safe, proper sight lines, and be of benefit to all users of the intersection in the community and not just Watchtower. So this is where we're at. Currently, we're using this as a staging area, as an accessory use in order to support the development of our audio-video project, which you can see partially in view. We do have a site plan of this if the board wanted to look at that. But what we'd like to do is, we've been operating for about a year and a half or so under these specific conditions. And we feel that in that year, we realized some of those conditions might have been imposed out of an abundance of caution as we were moving forward. But we feel in the previous year that we've operated the intersection safely. We haven't had any incidences traffic-wise. We feel like we can operate the site safely, the access safely. And we're asking the board if they could consider looking at the restrictions that we're currently under for use of the site, the 6 restrictions on there. we can go through those at the board's discretion,
I'm
or
gonna go.
you're gonna go through those?
Just so we're
Okay.
all on the same.
Okay, good, yeah,
Anything else?
that's basically it, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Um, throughout the various iterations of this project, which started close to 3 years ago, I think, right?
Approximately,
When you
yeah.
first approached us.
Yeah.
We had a couple of objectives, in common. To create a safe situation for your access, which initially was for the bridge repair. A safe situation not only for the residents of Tuxedo, but your own people, your own contractors, anybody who travels on Sterling Run Road. And we've achieved that. And, you know, we appreciate your cooperation in putting that road in and making a nice square situation there. Right. The other objective we had was to minimize the impact of the project on the residents of Tuxedo. Not just the residents in the immediate area, but residents who go on Eagle Valley Road to get to the various developments in that area, including me, including Susan. Residents who travel further on Sterling Mine and go up Long Meadow. And we've had pretty much success on that too. I don't think we've got a lot of complaints. We had a couple lighting and you did address them. Throughout the course of all those amendments, we had a back and forth. We gave a little, you gave a little. And as I recall, when we approved those various amendments over the course of close to 3 years now, there wasn't a lot of pushback. You know, you basically agreed at the time.
We can work with them.
And I understand that things changed during the course of the project. So I've taken a first stab at what I'm gonna throw out to the rest of the board to remove of those conditions, which conditions to remove, which ones to keep, and 1 or 2 new ones. So I'll go through that. When I'm done, I want to get the input of all the members of the board, our consultants, and you will certainly have an opportunity to respond to that.
Okay.
Fair enough?
That's fine, yeah.
Okay. So these are the ones that I will throw out to be removed from the latest, the 7th Amendment. We'll remove the no work on federal holidays. We'll take that off. And actually, for members of the board, our code permits work on federal holidays.
The noise ordinance.
So
yes,
that
yeah.
was a stretch on our part, apparently. Well, it was a stretch.
We do appreciate that adjustment. Thank you.
Right now, you're restricted to use the entrance for construction vehicles between 9 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, with 5 trucks maximum per hour. I propose to remove that one.
We agree to that. Thank you. Yeah.
I propose to remove the video camera. I don't think we've had to review any videos so far.
Time very early on, and it was a non-issue.
There's a clause in the latest amendment requiring the temporary structures to be removed by October of 2026. I'm proposing to remove that one.
Thank you.
The one thing that I want to keep is daily garbage pickups from the food tent.
We can do that.
And use bear-proof containers.
Sure.
Okay,
We would do that anyway as part of our housekeeping. Good
Okay.
housekeeping. Yeah.
good. New things. I would like a clause to be inserted that the trailer, the food tent, and so on, are in fact temporary structures. Open-ended to a point, but that they are temporary.
I believe they are permitted in the description
Yes,
as
and that would
temporary
be-
trailers and
you-
temporary structures, correct?
You have obtained the required permits for the trailer and the food service tent.
Yes, correct.
Those have to be renewed on a periodic basis. So that would be in there also per the code. And I believe that's every 6 months.
Correct, and
Right,
we
so-
we can support that,
So I
definitely.
I would insist that you continue to do that. I would want a clause put in that the planning board, the town planning board will revisit in October of 2026, the use of this entrance for construction vehicles. And that starting from today, it is allowed to be used for residents. Now, I know there's not gonna be any residents for several years at least, but that would be an in perpetuity situation. It could always be used for residents, which was what was initially proposed
Correct.
way back.
Yep.
That it would be used as an entrance and exit for residents of your, audiovisual center. So I would want that to be put in there also.
In addition to allowing us to use this for construction,
Yes,
to
but
support the
to
project.
be revisited
Correct.
in 2 years, October of 2026, by the planning board, at which time, depending upon where you are in the project, you could ask for an extension. Or, you could say, well, the Ramapo entrance is ready, which I would like, and we're gonna use that. But that's 2 years down the road.
Okay.
Okay? So that's my first cut at this. Now I want to get the input from all the board members. Feel free to add, subtract anything on this, so please give me your comments. John?
The construction vehicles during work hours is from 9 to 5.
9 to 3 now.
It just seems, I know we don't want to get going to it, but it seems a little late for a start time. That's me, I've been in construction my whole life. We think that by showing up at 9, you've lost 2 hours.
Well, again, I'm proposing that that goes away.
Yeah. Oh, you're proposing goes away?
Yes.
Oh, I'm all in favor. Aye.
Now,
Yeah, that's very restrictive, John. I agree with you.
now, there's one other thing that Kelly pointed out in an email a couple years ago. Part of the town code prohibits, and I'll read this verbatim. The sound produced by the erection or construction, including excavation, demolition, alteration, or repair of any structure other than between 8 AM and 8 PM weekdays and 9 AM to 8 PM weekends and holidays, prevailing time, except in case of urgent necessity and interest of public safety as determined by the code enforcement officer or pursuant to other applicable law adopted by the town board of the town of Tuxedo. So there are still, the noise restrictions would still be in effect. 8 to 8 weekdays, 9 to 8 weekends.
Makes sense.
So it's not a blanket that you can do things in the middle of the night.
Yes, and we respect that. We made note that the working on holidays is allowed in the code as long as it's within the noise ordinance. And there's activities that we would like being able to do on a holiday, such as non-noise producing activities like housekeeping, site cleanup, things that would stay within the, without disturbing neighbors. But this at least gives us site access. The way that the restriction was written is that we can't use the site. So we were like, well, how do we do guard shack security? How do we do housekeeping, site cleanup? So we really appreciate that concession on the part of the board, that adjustment to allow us to at least be on the site on a holiday, just to do non-noise producing things. That we thank you for that.
Anything else, John?
Yeah.
Bill?
There's a decibel level ceiling on noise, I believe, in the code. So that's already established.
We do have a noise meter. We monitor that, and we have found that the noise coming from the highway is louder than the activity we have on the site. So we are well within the noise requirements. Well, we do have a meter that we do check on a regular basis, a handheld, sound meter, decibel meter.
That's the meeting.
Yeah, so we
What
check
is the
that.
total schedule for this? How long will this be
Um,
ongoing?
We're 4 years out from now, 4 years out to finish, to get close to finishing the project. We anticipate having many of the buildings under building permit through next summer, beginning toward the end of the year through next summer. So likely 4 years out to try to get most of this most of it complete.
So I presume you'll be back for reconsideration of some of what was discussed going forward?
Yeah, per the chairman, if we're asked to appear in 2 years, we can give an update on our progress. Having the site accessible at the same rate as, this site will allow us to expedite things. The restriction, I say a restriction 9 to 3, we couldn't quite ramp up to where we'd like to be to support the work on the main site. So removing that will allow us to.
Yeah, that'll help out expedite your
Absolutely.
schedule, I would
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
Get more work done.
Yeah.
In each period.
Well, we're willing to come back in 2 years and provide an update on where we're at on that. Approximately 4 years. It might run a little longer than that, but that's what we're trying to do.
Okay, no, sounds reasonable,
Susan?
Yes, so in the original discussions, I think there was some kind of restriction about, trucks going westbound can make the left turn in, because the extra lane was added. But we put a restriction on the left turn out going westbound and no right turn in coming eastbound on the trucks. Is that still?
That's a good point. I didn't mention that. I didn't address that. Has that been a problem for your operation?
Only the fact that we've demonstrated that the intersection is safe. It's been realigned with sight lines. We haven't had any incidences.
Mr. Chairman, can I just
We would
jump
like
in
to
on
have that removed.
I'm sorry for interrupting. Are you finished?
Yeah.
So, when this originally came, the board had asked for that prohibition. That was no lefts out and no rights in, essentially. And I don't recall whether they went through a full analysis. Yes, they've made many improvements to that site. Their sight lines are much improved. But I don't know if it was reviewed by this board. If the applicant says right away, we're not interested in left-hand turns, then you don't really do any further review. So I'm not sure if it was reviewed to conclusion, and I'm not sure if the county would have had any comments. Keep in mind, they entering onto a county highway. So if the board is interested in eliminating that, or if the applicant is asking that to be eliminated, I would say that there'd be some condition that they need to just demonstrate either to my satisfaction or confirm with the county that no permitting is required from them to have left-hand turns out of this site.
And I think also we talked about, because it's the 2 lane and it goes down to 1, and with the
Correct.
trucks coming down that hill and turning right could be
Yes.
very troublesome.
That's right. You have, if you're right turning in, you have downslope that a truck has to deal with, right? You have backup traffic. I think you had some issues at certain times of the year with
Yep.
glare.
Yep.
So there's a number of different items
Absolutely.
that fall into whether this is safe or not. And if, let's say glare was a major concern and they said right off the bat that they weren't going to have right turn ins, you wouldn't have reviewed it.
Right.
So I just want to make sure that that review was concluded.
We do have, that review was done, and if Ashley Lai could, for AKRF, speak, she's our planner.
Thank you. Yeah, so there was a whole traffic impact study done on this intersection. It was included in the environmental impact statement, for which the town of Ramapo was the lead agency. We did make a presentation to this board back when this was going through site plan approval, and you did have your own traffic consultant participate in some of those conversations. I would also like to point out that this road does not only provide access to the Watchtower property, but it also provides access to this, the servants building up here, and then there's another building that's under, I guess it's going to be some kind of a
It's
hotel.
open as a
It's
spa,
already
yeah.
open.
The condition was just on construction vehicles from your
Right.
site. It
Right.
wasn't on other vehicles, it wasn't on passenger cars or anything like that. So, and I do recall the town's traffic consultant participating. I would then just have the condition that the town's traffic consultant. sign off.
If I could, John, for just a second, it can't just be a condition. It's actually contained in this board's seeker findings as a mitigation measure. So you would have to reopen seeker.
All right, so it sounds like that's gonna stay in. I would propose that that stays in because it opens up the secret process. And as Susan points out, and Sean, trucks coming down that hill, it's not a good situation because it's 2 lanes into one right before this entrance, your entrance, Eagle Valley Road entrance. Nobody goes the speed limit. I'm sure you've seen that. So it can, especially in the winter, snow, ice conditions.
I do recall that the Ramapo, I'm sorry, not Ramapo, excuse me, the Orange County Public Works, in their review, confirmed truck turning movements from all directions, proper sight lines for trucks.
I think what you just heard from council is, do you want to reopen seeker?
The seeker was specific that we can't do the left
That's
turn out.
what
That's
the
correct.
concern
It was
Just to be clear,
J8.
It would be an amendment to your finding statement. It wouldn't be reopening
Correct.
all of seeker, because there is a lead agency involved that did make findings on this.
Right,
before.
and this board made their own findings, and this was one of the mitigation measures that this board has in place.
So you'd be reopening seeker, reevaluating that, and then asking for that mitigation to be eliminated.
And I haven't heard that this has created a problem.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, is that a burden? Has that
To
been
be
a
clear,
burden?
you're only talking about keeping a prohibition on construction vehicles from making
Yes,
left-hand
yes,
turns.
no pickup trucks, no, passenger cars.
I think, Steve. Keith Katie with Watchtower as well. By far, the majority of any traffic is coming up Sterling Mine Road from Route 17, turning onto the site, where they're turning right out of the site. We have a tree clearing contractor who was coming from farther over in Ringwood, New Jersey, and he was coming down this way to reach the site. So, I mean, there's a one-off occurrence where there's somebody and not being able to take that right-hand turn means, you know, they're moving down farther into the town and trying to figure a way through Eagle Valley or some other place to, or yeah, worse, they would go through the Eagle Valley with their trucks and then come to that junction to make it, maybe even more dangerous.
I think all the trees are gone.
No, I'm just explaining, that is what the restriction required a trucker to do, which could arguably be less safe than taking that left-hand, right-hand turn. Orange County did require that we have that bell mouth on Sterling Mine Road, so that a vehicle reaching that junction before they turn right there could pull over and get out of the traffic lane. So, and those are, your concerns about the traffic there are noted, and we drive it every day, so we respect the danger associated with that.
So by lifting most of these restrictions, that means more construction vehicles are gonna be using this entrance, correct? So
More
that means
construction
feasibly,
vehicles could use it, yes.
right, and that means feasibly more coming from the west to the east.
So far, there've been precious few that have come that direction. It's just the one contractor we can think of, which was that particular one who came from.
But you have a lot of building
New Jersey or
to
something.
do.
Yeah.
We communicate very clearly to any trucking entity in any contract, and it's a reminder that at the time it was 9 to 3, 5 trucks per hour. But if the board wants the left turn or no left turn out, right turn in, we'll still make that clear. And
Right, I would-
just remove the hour restriction.
Since it sounds like it will not be much of a burden, I would propose to leave that in. The turn restrictions.
As opposed to trying to reopen and amend the.
Yeah, it's,
Well, it is the applicant's option. I mean, if the applicant does want to proceed with that, they can certainly do so. But the board is restricted in that fashion where you can't lift it unless that's done.
Yeah. We'll proceed on the board's suggestion, and then we can review with the board at a later date. Does that sound okay?
that's fine. You're always welcome back.
You're probably getting tired of us, right?
I didn't say that.
Okay.
Anything else, Susan?
No, I'm good, thank you.
No? James?
No,
No?
good catch.
Okay, so I guess as I read this, we'll adopt that, and I can go over this with you, Kelly, offline, rather than going through all this again. And we'll pass it past, your folks, just to make sure that nothing gets changed.
I am sorry, I haven't introduced myself
Sure.
yet. I'm Amy Mealy. I'm pinch hitting for Ira tonight. So I just wanted to make sure I had everything correct. So on number 2, we're not gonna have a 2-year expiration, but we're gonna have a 2-year comeback. So we're sort of.
Two-year review.
Yes, a 2-year review. Oh.
At
thank
which
you.
point, and eventually, the board, I don't know if any of us will still be here, but the board will require, and I would include this in the new resolution,
Mhm.
that eventually the site will be returned
Of
to its
course.
natural state.
Yeah.
You know, we'll put that in there also.
Actually, that's in here.
It's in there
already,
now.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's.
Oh,
in there-
as a continuing, yeah.
Yeah, whenever that date happens to be. Maybe
Okay.
it'll be shortly after October 2026, because right now, the restoration is supposed to be done by October 2026, so we're taking that away.
Right. Thank you very much. The
Would
federal
it be
law-
easier if I just drafted a revised one and circulated it and the board
That would
could?
be great,
Yeah, no,
Kelly.
that'd be good.
That would be great. We don't have any problems with the new ones you're imposing or the ones that you're taking away. I think it's a good example of the back and forth that you talked about at the beginning of the meeting, Mr. Chairman. And Kelly and I can also talk offline about the seeker issue on the turning movements.
And then I can circulate it and we can put it back on your agenda for December for approval. That way everybody has the correct language.
Okay.
That might be easier.
We need to appear for that, just to hear the resolution being passed, would that be proper for us to appear?
You could connect via Zoom and, you know, probably better if one or two of you came. So what that means is we're not passing a new resolution tonight. So for now, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kelly, you're still operating under the old one.
That's correct. But you'd be considering it at your next meeting, which is December 3rd. So they'd have one more month to comply with it as it is, but we could at least have all of the language hashed out beforehand. And both the board and the applicant would know really what's being agreed to, what's being removed, what's being kept.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. We agree to that. Thank you.
Okay, all right, good, thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for allowing us to appear. to
Okay.
Consider that.
Thanks very much
No
for having
problem.
us.
Chairman, I think if you haven't done it, I think you need a motion to authorize council to prepare that draft.
Okay, I'll make a motion to have Kelly prepare a draft resolution, which she'll circulate to the board and the applicant's attorney.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next item is Verizon Wireless. Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry, Kelly can hear you.
So, good evening. Again, my name is Scott Olson, an attorney with Young Summer of Albany. And we were here last month and I just wanted to update you in terms of where we are. We did provide initial responses to your engineers' comments and planners' comments. And I know there have been recent comments from them, but I'm not gonna address those just right yet. I just kind of summarizes what we did and where we are. I think one of the biggest items was we provided an updated site selection analysis, and that addressed, we believe, the issue of, you have preferred zoning districts, basically. SR, GB, those are preferred, we should be in those zoning districts first. We're not, we're in the S-HB district. But what the site selection analysis showed is that although there are a few properties in the GB and SR district within our search ring, the area that we have to be in, those are not viable. The easiest one is the GB. It's pretty close to the property we're proposing to go on. But that property is fully developed. There is just no room for the tower. That's why we never even approached them. It's not viable. And if we were to put a tower, somehow squeeze one in, we would violate every single one of your setback requirements. We currently violate one or two of them now, but we would violate every single one. So that's why we're not going on that property. The rest of the properties in the SR district, they're all Harriman Park properties. So it's a park property. We can't go on there without an alienation process, but your code also wants us to be away from the Harriman Park properties. So we don't view that as viable. We would actually need the New York State Legislature to approve a bill. The governor would have to sign it. And we honestly just don't think being in the park is a good idea. So we believe this is the most appropriate location. So that's in the site selection analysis update. We are still working on a survey. Once it's completed, we will submit it. We have provided a removal bond estimate so that if when the lease terminates or expires, we will remove it and would provide a bond to the town. For your information, we have a lease with the property owner. In that lease, we are obligated legally to remove the tower at our expense. But I understand some towns want a bond as security. That's fine. We have provided some revised plans to address some of the comments from the engineer and planner. We know from the recent letters, there are more comments, not more, I guess, some comments may not have been fully addressed, so we're going to address those in the next round of our comments. We've provided the revised environmental assessment form, which was requested at the last meeting, so you should have that in your possession. We provided a noise letter, a fire emergency access letter that shows that in our view, our access is compliant with the fire code. And we have received Mr. Johnson's review memo, I think as of a few days ago. We've sent it on to our RF engineer, and we will provide a response. We've worked with Mr. Johnson in other communities, and we will respond. Usually he has comments as he does here, and we provide a response, and our engineer sometimes will reach out to Mr. Johnson directly so that they can do their engineering communication and, figure out all the proper engineering principles and answers. So that's basically where we are today, and we will provide a response to the new letters that came out in the last week or so.
Before I get to Valerie and Sean, we have our RF consultant on the Zoom, Steve Ciccarelli. Steve, you submitted a rather lengthy, very detailed report.
Yes.
You just want to, could you just summarize the major findings for the board for our consultants?
Sure, I'll be happy to do that. And also, as applicant just brought up, that their RF engineer will sometimes reach out to us. Do we have, moving forward, permission to speak with applicants' RF engineer directly from the board, or is that something you'd rather not have take place?
Kelly, or Sean, what's the convention there? Is that a conflict or?
No, you usually allow the consultants to speak with each other. They're not making any decisions on behalf of the board. Obviously, everything would come back to the board, but sometimes it's some, more technical questions. What exactly are you looking for? This is what I'm looking for. And they can kind of work those out outside of the board and then come to you with, the resolution of that.
Do we have to officially sanction that, or can we just say, yes, it's okay?
You can just say, yes, it's okay.
Does anybody have any issue with that?
I think it's smart. Yeah.
Okay, you can speak to that.
Very good, thank you. We appreciate that. That sometimes helps the process move along a little more quickly. So, all right, well, let me go ahead and kind of give you an executive summary or bird's eye overview of our findings then. So first off, Verizon has proposed 120-foot monopole tower plus 4-foot lightning rod at 961 New York Route 17. Their proposal is based on demonstrated need for enhanced coverage and capacity in the area. The proposal addresses significant gaps in wireless coverage. The propagation plots provided by applicant show that the targeted improvement area, that's that search area that's highlighted in their documents, around the proposed site currently experiences weak to no coverage and capacity limitations on nearby sites such as the Tuxedo Alpha and Beta sites. What that is there's a tower about a mile or so to the west of the proposed tower location. And on that tower, there are 3 sets of antennas, Alpha, Beta, and Gamma. And 2 of those that are facing the general direction of the proposed site are significantly overloaded. A lot of traffic is being offloaded, or basically hitting those towers, or that one tower, and causing some overload issues. Verizon did demonstrate that a reduced tower height with a 96-foot antenna center line, so that would be a 100-foot tower height plus the lightning rod, would fail to meet their coverage goals. So that would be a 20-foot reduction from what they're asking. We recommended in our report, considering a mid-band propagation plot at 106 feet ACL, to see if perhaps a slightly shorter tower height might also achieve acceptable coverage outcomes. So that's something that I'm guessing that their RF engineer will be looking at shortly based on our request. Applicant did look at 4 potential sites. Site A was the Crown Tower site, which is just northeast of the current location. Then sites B and C, those sites were either unavailable or unsuitable. Applicant deemed site B too small for a telecommunications tower. That's the police department. And they also say it was blocked by terrain. Site C owners was not interested in the leasing. We say in our report that although applicant deemed site B impractical, further analysis could be beneficial if the siting authority, right, finds it could offer visual or aesthetic advantages and the location of such a tower is feasible under town code at that location because it is a small parcel. When you look at the planned neighboring sites, Verizon does provide an existing and planned sites map. It shows they have 3 additional sites under development in Tuxedo. Due to the distance from the currently planned site and the local terrain, these sites, we do not expect them to impact the area served by the proposed tower. So that indicates that the proposed site will not be redundant based on their current plans. As far as regulatory compliance, the application materials do include an RF emissions compliance report that affirms compliance with well within FCC safety limits, indicating the proposed emissions will be well below hazardous thresholds. Our report does recommend the board accept this finding despite their address error. It looks like this was originally done over by the Crown Tower site, and then the new application has the location moved to the southwest by about 800 or 900 feet. And from our experience in doing this kind of work, moving the tower like that to that short amount of distance is not going to change the emissions of the tower. So that'll still be well within compliance in our opinion. The 120 feet proposed height does not require FAA lighting or marking as affirmed by the applicant, since it's well below 200 feet and not in controlled airspace. Future co-location on this tower is possible as the structure can support either 2 or 3 additional carriers. In our finding 14, we detail that exhibits 11 and 12 are in conflict. One says that the tower can support 2 additional carriers, and one says it can support 3 additional carriers. So we recommended that the board have that fixed, right? The only other thing I see here that I didn't mention is the site plan does show applicants' antennas at 115 and 117.5 feet antenna center line. And we recommend they correct that to 116 and 118.5. It's just a discrepancy between some of the documentation that's submitted. So we detail that in finding number 13. And that covers the findings. I'd be happy at this point to answer any questions the board might have.
Does anybody on the board have any questions for Steve?
Yeah, I looked at the engineering drawing of, the proposed site. And I didn't notice any groundings, plan for the tower and the equipment. There's a generator there. I didn't see any grounding there. Maybe I missed it, but
Say, grounding as far as attaching their equipment to earth ground?
yes, I would expect driven rods and a cable system around that to ground the tower as well as the electrical equipment that's there, and I didn't see that on the engineering drawing.
I didn't look for that or see that myself, but I would expect Verizon's RF engineer to be able to answer that question.
Okay,
I'm not the RF engineer, but I can answer that. There will be grounding. There's grounding on every tower. And I don't know the details of it, but it's a extensive grounding ring and set of cables and all that. I don't believe those are in the plans. Typically, we don't put them in the plans at the planning stage, more of a building permit issue. That's typically how we do it.
there's quite a bit of electrical detail on the engineering drawing. And grounding is obviously a necessary part of that. That's why I expected to see it, but
I can certainly ask the engineer because I'm sure they have the details of it for their construction drawings for other sites. So I don't think it's gonna be that hard of an ask, so I'll put that down.
and there's a 50 kilowatt, diesel generator there. I didn't see any fuel storage tank.
There will be, it's the fuel storage tank is incorporated into the generator, usually on the side or on the bottom generally.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so
I know,
it's
I
all,
probably missed it.
yeah, it's a belly tank basically,
I see.
exactly. Yep.
Also, I didn't see any height for the concrete pads that this stuff is on. And it looks like from that location, looking at the land contour, it's kind of down in a pit. Even though there's a drainage ditch on the drawing. I mean, electrical equipment, it's wise to always elevate a concrete pad
I will
12
ask
inches.
our engineer.
6 or 12 inches or 18 inches. Right? Those are my only comments.
Very good, thank you. Susan?
I'm good. Thank you.
James?
I still have a question about the co-location, which I think we talked about a little bit last time, which is that happening at the same elevation points that if another company wanted to come in, would they be co-locating at the same elevation points, or do they have to position themselves either above or below Verizon?
That's usually about 10 feet lower. Since it's Verizon Tower, they would take the pole position there, the top position. And then each carrier would be about 10 feet lower. That's what I've seen, unless Verizon has an alternate answer to that.
No, that's generally correct. It's, they can't operate, well, they don't operate at the same elevations. It usually is lower.
Okay.
If for some reason they thought they had to go higher, they'd have to come to this board and explain why they have to go higher. But normally, it's right below us.
Right, so I guess, Stephen, my question on this is, ultimately, I would feel like the goal should be to, if we're entertaining co-location and we understand that the coverage is already suspect at this 120-foot height, and you're talking about possibly lowering the pole even to 106 with this recommendation, it would seem like it would then become completely ineffective for actual co-location in the future, which would then seem to suggest that another company is going to then have to come up and put up another pole rather than just add 10 or 20 feet to this one pole. So I'm just curious on your take on that, Stephen.
Yeah, no, you are absolutely correct. What we'd like to do is find out if lowering this, how that would impact Verizon's coverage in the area. But yes, certainly that is one of the things we mentioned in our report is the lower you go with this particular tower, you're right, the co-location positions are likely to be less useful to other carriers. We don't know until we see the other carriers' propagation plots, but yes, if 10 feet, does it really make a difference from what we've seen? Probably not, but we'd like to see that plot, and that's also up to the board. If the board doesn't see this height as an issue and is concerned about additional request for towers in the area, then yes, that 10 feet is not really that important, and you can decide not to ask applicant to go ahead and give us that information. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that does. Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else, James?
No, I mean, I think my opinion's pretty clear that I think we should stay with the higher height, allow for potential co-location if the report does come back and suggest that this is needed. I think that they've demonstrated through their review that there are limited sites around here where this can actually occur and be successful. So at least for their software or hardware, it would seem like that's the case. And so I just want to not be in a position where the board would have to approve additional 120-foot poles throughout the sight lines of this parkland.
Mr. Chairman, can I just add one thing to that? So in my reading of the code, your authority is limited, right? And you heard Professor talk about how that you need to make a determination. You are authorized to approve the least impactful, I think might be the language in the code. I don't know if Verizon has demonstrated 120 feet is sufficient. I don't know if the code authorizes you to increase that for future carriers. I agree with you. It makes technical sense. But I just don't know if you have that authority. I think you're going to need an opinion from council on that.
And I can certainly quote the code to you for your next meeting, but typically what the wireless codes say is that you have to grant, the tower at the lowest height that really works to achieve the applicant's goal. I completely understand your point. We've seen it in other places though, where if the code restricts you in that regard, you just can't increase it, even though that may make for better planning. But I'll take a look at the code and see specifically what that language is, and also pass that along to your consultant as well. But I think the information is important to be provided to him so that the board has all of it before they make a decision.
And one other item, just to close that out. Understanding the need for cell towers in the town and the lack of coverage, you're probably going to see future applications for cell towers. You may want to make a recommendation to the town board to consider maybe a modification of town code to address that issue.
Just, if I may, we're kind of in a catch-22 because our obligation under your code and most other codes is we have to come in with a minimum tower height necessary. We realize though that, there could be a need to go higher, although often we don't really find that, but it can happen. So what we do is we show you what we believe our minimum height is, but we're willing to build the tower and the foundation to accommodate the future co-locators. So that if someone comes along and proves they have to do it, the foundation's capable of it and the steel's capable of it. So.
Valerie, you issued a report on this. You want to?
Yeah, I did. And I think really the first, a big chunk of my, large portion of my report is really getting the application complete for this board. And some of it deals with the zoning. I think the zoning needs to be clarified in terms of the zoning table, the setbacks, and, just confirming that you do meet the zoning and there's no zoning variances required. The other thing I just wanted to note also, there are certain criteria similar to what we were just talking about. There's discussions about, there's requirements about dealing with security and safety fencing, which the applicant has said that they don't need. So this is something that, the board will ultimately have to determine whether it's something that they can waive, or Kelly will have to determine that, or whether that requires variance. And then there's also requirements for certain screening and landscaping where the applicant said that was going to be, presented in future submissions. So I think for the most part, it would be very helpful for this board for the applicant to complete their application. And then also, just like we were talking about, there are very specific regulations associated with wireless communication for the applicant to actually address those and provide arguments as to why or why not some of those requirements and recommendations apply or don't apply to this application.
Thanks, Valerie. So does this need a ZBA referral for this setback?
not a referral. This board doesn't need to refer applications under your code, but they do need variances. And that was one of the items I wanted to discuss with the applicant to make sure that there's a clear understanding between this board and the applicant, what variances are required.
Can do that now
And
or
just on that, the seeker lead agency notice did include the ZBA as an involved agency, so seeker would have to be finished by this board before the ZBA can act. Sorry, Sean.
And we need a public hearing on this, correct?
Yes, but I don't think you're quite ready yet.
Okay, so clearly we're not ready for complete secret either.
No, but I provided you with a draft part two if you'd like to go over it.
I don't know if that's kind of premature also, isn't it, at this point?
Well, I
mean,
think, yeah, I think you can go over it. What it really will do will identify additional information and areas that the applicant needs to address. So when they're putting together their next package to respond to all of your other consultants' memos, they'll have the environmental issues that they need to address as well.
Okay, so why don't you walk us through that, your arrow items?
Yes, so for the board and for the applicant, I think you all know, when I put a little arrow next to something on the right-hand side of the page, that indicates it's a potential small impact rather than no impact. In impacts on land, I've indicated that there are two potentially small impacts, and that's the proposed action may involve construction on slopes of 15% or greater. And the proposed action may result in increased erosion, whether from physical disturbance or vegetation removal, including from treatment by herbicides. Impact on geological features was no. Impacts on surface water was yes, and there were two potentially small impacts. The proposed action may involve construction within or adjoining a freshwater or tidal wetland or in the bed or banks of any other water body. And the proposed action may affect the water quality of any water bodies within or downstream of the site of the proposed action. Impact on groundwater was no. Impact on flooding was no. Impacts on air was no. Impacts on plants and animals was yes, with three potentially small impacts. The first is the proposed action may result in a reduction or degradation of any habitat used by any rare, threatened, or endangered species as listed by New York State or the federal government. That is the northern long-eared bat and the timber rattlesnake. And a new one for me is the proposed action may result in a reduction or degradation of any habitat used by any species of special concern and conservation need as listed by New York State or the federal government. And that is the world milkweed. Who knew? Then the proposed action may result in the removal of or ground disturbance in any portion of a designated significant natural community. The source for that was the DEC mapper for the Appalachian oak hickory forest and the chestnut oak forest. Impact on agricultural resources was no. Impact on aesthetic resources was yes. There was one potential small impact, that there are similar projects visible between 0 and 5 miles of the proposed project. And then there were a number that were marked moderate to large impact. And that was proposed action may be visible from any officially designated federal, state, local scenic or aesthetic resource, may result in the obstruction, elimination, or significant screening of one or more officially designated scenic views. It may be visible from publicly accessible vantage points seasonally, year-round, during routine travel, and during recreation or tourism-based activities. And the proposed action may cause a diminishment of the public enjoyment and appreciation of the designated aesthetic resource. Impact on historic and archaeological resources was yes, with one potential small impact. The proposed action may occur wholly or partially within or substantially contiguous to an area designated as sensitive for archaeological sites on the New York State Historic Preservation Office Archaeological Site Inventory. Impact on open space and recreation was no. Impact on critical environmental areas was no. Impact on transportation was no. Impact on energy was no. Impact on noise, odor, and light was yes. One potentially small impact was that the proposed action may produce sound above noise levels established by local regulation. And that one's really temporary and during construction. Impact on human health was no. Consistency with community plans was yes, which actually means no. And there was one moderate to large, which is the proposed action is inconsistent with local land use plans or zoning regulations, which is what Sean was talking about earlier. And consistency with community character was no, which actually means yes. So those are my proposed responses. I don't know if anybody had any questions on that.
You've received a copy of this from, Kelly.
I did. Unfortunately, a lot of it didn't come through, maybe because of my PDF reader. So I saw the arrows. I didn't see the other.
Oh, no, it's
But-
between the different kinds of computers, I think. I can scan and email you a copy.
That's fine, yeah. We don't think that there are any, well, we would agree that any of the impacts, if there are any, are small. The aesthetic one, I think I would ask the board, those really deal with kind of some SHPO issues, and I have heard we have SHPO approval. They looked at our visual resource analysis, but I don't have the actual email from them. I'm trying to get a copy. So I want to submit that. So I think that's critical to the aesthetic resource impacts that Kelly went over. So once I get that.
Yeah, if you can provide that, that would be great. I think it's also a big deal because I believe it's visible from, is it Harriman State Park? And that's one of the significant scenic resources. So I think that's where a lot of it triggered becoming moderate to large.
Right, and that's why I think that's part of the reason why SHPO got involved. So I want to see SHPOs. I've been told, like I said, it's approved, but I haven't seen it. So I've asked for a copy of that from our team. I haven't seen it yet, but I hopefully will have it in next week and I'll submit that with our information.
Okay.
Okay. Because I think if we're talking a potential finding of a significant impact, then we're talking about an environmental impact statement.
No, not necessarily. You can submit that information as expanded part 3. I know at the last meeting, there was a talk about the balloon test and whether or not the board had wanted additional photographs or not. So if they did, that I think would tie right into it, but I think you could handle it as an expanded part 3.
Okay, and I guess that leads, it's a good segue. We did provide the photo simulations that we provided to SHPO to this board. I think there were 12 in total. And I don't know if the board had a chance to look at it. I didn't know if that was sufficient for your purposes, or do you want or think it's advisable for another balloon test with additional locations?
Well, that wasn't a balloon test per se, was it?
Well, it was a balloon test. The simulations were made based on a balloon being floated, just like we would do for a new balloon test. But it was done specifically with SHPO in mind. SHPO said, this is what we want to see.
I think you said simulation. It wasn't an actual balloon.
Well, right, but the simulation is prepared based on a balloon being floated in the air. The only way we can simulate the tower at the proper height is to have a structure up in the air at the proper elevation. So in this case, it was a balloon that was done. So, yeah, and then so what we do with the balloon test, we float a balloon. We then have our technicians will drive around the entire area, look for areas from which the balloon is visible, and they'll take photographs. And they take photographs at sites where it's not visible, just to prove it's not visible. They take photographs at sites where it's visible, and that gives them the proper scale so that they can simulate the tower. That's how they handle a balloon test.
You can see the St. Louis arch all the way from there. I saw it on the.
So do we think another balloon test or a true balloon test is required? Or?
Mr. Chairman, before you talk to the board, can I just add just one thing for your conversation? So the applicant provided you with an analysis that they discussed last time. That's a two-dimensional analysis that they show you areas that it may be visible from different, I think, vegetation. Oh, no, actually, the program they used said that there's certain areas that are shielded by topography and then certain areas that are shielded by vegetation. And they show you areas where it could be visible. Right, some of the areas that could be visible that the applicant didn't perform an evaluation on were within Tuxedo Park, along Laurel and Continental Roads, and also within Harriman State Park at a couple locations that I identified in my report. I think you may, if you're going to have the applicant redo the balloon test, I think you really want to have them have some simulations or photo documentation from Harriman State Park.
Now, the work that you've done, was that with foliage on or foliage off?
They did it in March, so there was very little.
It was off.
It was off.
And it would, yeah, and a new one would be obviously off because by the time we got it scheduled, I'm pretty sure, even though you're south of Albany, you'd have a leaf off situation here. Because it'd most likely be done in 2 to 3 weeks.
Well, I think the areas that Sean refers to, I think we'd want to see what it looks like from those areas.
Yeah, no, and I'm fine with that, especially given what proposed findings of potential large impact. I'd like to have the opportunity to show that it's not going to be a large impact.
Okay.
So I think the way that would tie in, and I defer to Kelly if I misspeak, but I think you would prepare that study, that supplemental balloon test, and that would be part of your part 3. So your part 3 would address any small or moderate impacts. So just by way of an example, on a small, the site came up as an automatic generation from the mapper that there were wetlands. I'm pretty sure the wetlands are off your site. You would include a map showing where the wetlands are, just so the board can close out those comments.
No, absolutely. It will show that because I know the plans didn't show that. Sometimes our survey folks, they just, hey, there are no wetlands. We're not going to build in wetlands. And I explain, I know, but we have to explain that to the people making the decision. But so we'll do that. I saw those in the comments. Yeah. So what I would suggest is if the board wants a new balloon test, that's fine. I don't remember if we submitted proposed locations for it. We certainly would do that, but we would want your input. You know this town and area much better than we do. So, but we will look at Harriman Park. We know the hot spots, the visual receptors, so we'll include those in our list, but please feel free to add to that.
Who is most familiar with, I'm not a hiker, so when do you guys want to assume the role of identifying the areas that we should review?
We can.
Yeah,
Topographical and map it out from there, any of the trails in Harriman that are over in that area.
that's what we'll do. We'll get a trail map too, and overlook maps and just see if there's any potential.
And see anything that's in that range or.
Yeah, I might come down for that then if we're gonna be hiking.
Okay. Thanks.
But yeah, so we'll put that together, because I think we already provided a view shed map, like Sean said. I don't remember if we provided the proposed locations at all, though.
And then just one final thing, it's not really a requirement for your application, but I'd be curious, the other 3 locations that Verizon is investigating.
Sure.
If you could, I know you've given approximate location, but if you could give like a street address or something as to where those
Just
are.
put a crosshair on a map where the best location is, and then your other ones, just so that anybody can look from the top view and just kind of get a real.
But also
You made the additional.
but also the address,
Yeah.
If we have that information.
If
because
you're that specific.
We're looking, and maybe you've heard, we were looking to be in Tuxedo Park. And I was down here last month, we were meeting with them. They're not committed to anything.
No, I understand.
Because it was actually village property that we were looking at. Some people don't want it, some people want it, and so you can imagine they're deciding what they want to do and what's best for their community. We'll give you the best information we
Right.
can, absolutely. To the extent we have a physical address, yes.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Yes, you will.
So I think that's as far as we can go on this.
Well,
one.
if you could make a motion to assume lead agency status and then a
I think we
motion
did
to
that.
adopt.
I think we did that the last time.
You declared lead agency. Now you're assuming it, having received no objections from other involved agencies.
All right, okay. All right, so I'll make a motion that the town of Tuxedo Planning Board will be lead agency for seeker on this project.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. And
Adopt the part 2 EAF.
Yep.
That you Kelly.
what about it?
A motion to adopt it if the board wants to do that at this time. That then finalizes the applicant.
Don't we need the responses before we?
No, that would be in the part
Nope.
3.
Part 3?
Can I interrupt? Sorry.
Sure.
Since you don't have SHPO yet, and I hear what you're saying about including this as a part 3 expansion, but we would like to have the opportunity to get all the information to you before you do that seeker.
Okay, I'm really kind of
That-
surprised.
that would-
at that motion.
That would be part of the part 3, so I don't know what you're asking.
I think, and so the part 2 just identifies the environmental topic areas that you're gonna further research and provide additional documents on. That's it. So it's not a determination of significance.
No, I understand.
And
Okay.
if you walk out of here without that tonight, the board can come back next meeting and say, well, we were thinking about it and we want to add this 1 or 2 things to study. I think you want your marching orders as to what you need to study, but.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I think it's, the pros and cons to both approaches in my view. But I'm not gonna go into it, so that's fine.
Well, it's your call. What would you prefer?
No, if you're willing to adopt that then and stick with those findings or areas to be studied, I'm happy with that. It's fine.
Let me say this, even if he submits and Verizon submits all of the information that address these impacts, you still need to adopt a part 2 that identifies those impacts. It's just that you're gonna take the information that he submits after that, or before, if you wanted to do it that way, and then incorporate that into a determination of significance. So regardless, the FEIF part 2 shouldn't be changing because that's gonna be based on the part 1. So like if he had a letter from SHPO today and he handed it to you, I would still list a potentially small impact in your part 2 and then address how that is handled in, for example, a negative declaration. So
So you're
adopt the
saying
part 2.
we should adopt the part 2.
Yes.
Okay, you're okay with that?
Yes,
Okay.
that doesn't matter. I mean,
All right.
it's your
I'll
authority.
make a motion to adopt the EAF part 2 as presented tonight.
One second.
All in favor?
Yep.
And I think that's it, right?
I have
That's-
one other, hold on, I have one other item.
Sean, you're killing us.
I just want to make sure that there's no confusion, right? It sounds like we have a lot of time to do the balloon test, but in actuality, January, February are not ideal months to do that. The applicants asked you to identify the manage points. I don't know, are you looking to come back at the next meeting and have the board identify, or does the board want to, let's say, give the board 2 weeks to decide, and then you send an email or have one of the consultants send an email that these are the vantage points the board has asked you to consider?
I think that's a good point, and that the board can certainly, I think that's where you may have been going, to adopt, having someone on the board basically come up with those locations that are acceptable, or the consultants. So we'll submit proposed locations within the next week. And then we're asking this board if you have any additional
Okay,
locations.
we'll pass that to John, yourself, Bill, whoever is interested in
Yeah.
picking a spot. Again, I don't know these hills around here, so.
So then if the board wants to handle it that way, we can then get it scheduled, once we receive your input.
Okay.
So I would just caution against any open meetings violations. So you may want to have individuals, maybe speak with Valerie as the planner for her expertise and then subject to Valerie's satisfaction, something like that.
But 2 board members,
Then I'd be fine.
right, I know it can't be more, it can't be a quorum, I understand. So 2 individuals could consult on this together.
Yes.
And then we would provide, once we got your input, we would provide the board, its consultants, with notice of when we're proposing to do this.
Okay.
And one other thing I just want to raise, there was discussion of tower height that was still being investigated, so I don't know whether you want to take that balloon test at, more conservative height versus the height that ultimately is going to be proposed, so that's just something I'm just putting out there.
No, it's a good point. We believe it's ultimately proposed. It's not gonna change in our view. Generally, a 10-foot reduction, you're not gonna see much of a difference in the analysis in general. But honestly, our people have been doing this for so long that, we've never really lowered the height of a tower. So.
Can always float 2 balloons and see.
We could do that, and once it's scaled off too, if that were to, I'm sure they could scale it, but I'll make sure, but that's true.
Okay, anything else?
I'm not going to say another word.
Anybody? Okay,
All right, thank you very
you.
much.
okay, Mr. Kelly? I appreciate your sitting here for an hour and 45 minutes before we got to.
I'm gonna hold it upside down, but it's gonna make a little more sense, but I'm gonna, yeah. Can you, everyone see it?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm gonna hold it upside down, just gonna, it's gonna make more sense to for the purpose of why we wanna make the amendment to the site plan. But, just so everyone knows, my name is Ryan, this is my wife Laura. I've lived in Tuxedo for 27 years and looking to continue living here and build my family here now. So currently on the site plan that the land currently has, it shows the house would be over in this back corner, which causes some concerns with the topography because it doesn't allow for a safe area in the back for, future children to play. It doesn't really allow for a backyard. It allows them to walk out the back door down the cliff. It also would mean that it gives some concerns for, we want to be good stewards to our neighbors. And with the house here, it would put us overlooking our neighbor's pool, which I'm sure they don't want. It also we would have to clear the trees between the two properties. These are some of the best trees on the property, in my opinion. There's probably about 30 trees there that are over 8-inch caliber trees. They're good, healthy trees. Then it put our driveway only a couple feet off of our neighbor's property, which I'm sure they would not enjoy. So, those are, two things. One, the environmental impact of the larger trees that would have to come down for it, that obviously we'd rather save since we'd rather have trees. The impacts of the environmental, not the topography facts of the slant in the back and the no backyard. And then we also want to do something that's pleasing to what's already currently there. Every house, and when you look at them, for the most part, is perfectly in the middle of each property. Our house would be the outlier. It would kind of look like the odd one out. So to try and help with the aesthetics, we want to be aesthetically pleasing to everyone else and, like I said, be a good neighbor. So that's why we proposed moving the house over into this area, which gives still room for a still gives plenty of room for a septic. It gives a better, safer area for playing. Gives a better privacy for our neighbors. And it'd be an area that, as Deborah found, the easements were never filed for that clearing area.
No, it is listed on the subdivision plat.
Oh,
So it does exist because it's shown on the subdivision plat.
This is the easement for the area of no disturbance? Is that the easement we're speaking of?
yes.
Anything else?
No, that's my argument.
Valerie, you have any comments on this?
The only thing that I had Deborah pulled the minutes from the past to try to kind of get a sense of what the area of no disturbance really related to. And the only thing I could find in the minutes, it seemed like there might have been some concerns from adjoining properties because there is something very specific in there when in the minutes, they talk about this buffer, but the buffer doesn't seem to be related to any sort of wetlands or any other sort of environmental condition. And one of the last conditions in the minutes that specifically noted they just said the buffer easement is to be shown on the map as not to be disturbed. And the buffer easement that kept being referred to was dealing with adjoining property. So that's what I could find in the history of the minutes. But now, of course, I took a look at them today. I mean, I could dig a little bit further, but there doesn't seem to be any specific reason for that area of disturbance, unless for some reason, Sean, you found anything.
It's on the subdivision plat. It's enforceable. I believe there may have been some clearing before, but that's not an issue for this board. That's an issue for the building inspector. My understanding is that in order to change that, they would need amended subdivision approval, believe it or not. You wouldn't think that it'd be so hard to change a note on the drawing, but it was there by the board that approved it back in 2003. So it does have to go through that process. We spoke with the applicant during a TAC meeting. We did indicate that this is probably a more complicated process than it seems on the onset because of that. In addition to this board's approval, whether you agree to issue amended subdivision approval or not, the applicant would have to go back to the Department of Health for approval because that approval expired many years ago. And similar to the applicant that will appear after this applicant, you will also need to take ARB approval on this application for a single-family house. So, as indicated, there are a couple complexities to this that, aren't readily available when you look at it the first time.
Now, for the subdivision amendment, do we need a public hearing for that?
My understanding.
Yes, it's required under the law.
So I think Kelly, you have anything to add on this?
Yes, so for seeker, in terms of seeker, this isn't, even though it's a single family dwelling, it is amending a subdivision plat. So you can declare your intent to serve as lead agency. So even though Sean referenced the Department of Health, this also has to go to the DEC and to SHPO. So you can declare your intent to serve as lead agency and type the action as unlisted.
So your option to avoid all this would be to put the house back, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kelly or Sean, put the house back in the original place. Now, I know it makes sense why you don't want to do that. But there's a process that unfortunately you're gonna have to go through. So you wanna go through the process? Okay. Okay. So the only thing we can do tonight then is declare our intent to be lead agency.
And to type the action as unlisted. And I just want to note just for the applicant that they will also have to have a consultant on board that can prepare a amended subdivision plat that's in a form that's capable of being filed with the county at the end of this process.
Yeah, guys, that's our engineer, right?
Yes, that'd be.
Engineer is licensed design professional, can prepare that. However, it's different than what you have here. So the county will not accept this. Okay.
Okay, so again, the only thing we can do tonight, I think, is declare our intent to be lead agency and type it as unlisted.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, I'll make a motion to that effect. For a second. All in favor?
Yep.
All right. And I believe that's as far as we can go on this, right? Tonight.
That's correct.
Okay,
Thank you. Thank you for your time, everybody.
Thanks.
okay, last but certainly not least, Mr. Breyer?
No.
No, you're not, Mr. Breyer. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, since this is only ARB, I'm going to leave. If that's all right for the board?
Yes. Would you just speak into that, please?
Oh, sure, Sean, drag it out for us and then leave early.
Did you sign in your name?
No.
Yeah.
Hopefully you're gonna get it back.
So do they know what they have to do now?
I hope so. It's on them. I mean, I can check with them. You don't have to put that, just who you're representing Mr. Breyer, I assume, right?
Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for waiting so long.
Thank you.
I hope I'm not gonna keep you long. We'll make a quick decision so we can move on. This is basically actually, we had a permit already for this, but they realized that we need to come to the ARB for the colors signing, so we gave in all the applications with all the colors.
So they have a building permit for this?
For clearing. They were given their building permit, yes, and then we realized that they did not have ARB approval. So that's when they were asked to go back and they were told to stop construction, which they didn't even start anything.
But they have a permit to begin clearing.
They do.
Yeah, we didn't do anything yet. I
They didn't-
figured
yeah,
that,
they didn't
we
have
thought that the board meeting is gonna be like next month, so I figured, you know what? I wanna get something done before the winter foundation. But we're here now, we didn't start anything, so.
Okay, we have
It's
a,
just the approval of the colors.
we have a rendering of that.
Yeah.
You didn't bring that with you?
No, because I was supposed to be at home storage.
I thought I brought.
I have it here.
You have it?
It's Deborah,
Yes.
nice meeting.
You as well.
Oh, you're on it, one.
I have, I've seen it, so.
Yep. Yeah, I saw it too.
You saw it too?
Yep.
And you have defined the siding manufacturer, color,
Yes,
you have
everything.
defined all that.
Yes.
The document that you
Yes.
supplied to us.
Yes.
Okay.
So this doesn't need anything else, beyond ARB.
Right, it does need GML though. I'm not sure if that came back.
It did, it actually came back, quote unquote denied, but simply because they don't have to refer it anymore because of the intermunicipal agreement. So,
Perfect.
That's not an issue.
yeah.
Just let me know the date of that email or whatever you got so I can include it in the resolution.
Yes.
So does anybody have any comments on the appearance? James, Bill?
And I just think it's a traditional form, the windows are sort of punched modern squares. It could go better, there's maybe a little different style of window that would work better with the form of the house. Other than that, I think it looks nice.
The architect basically, I told him to figure out what the area calls for, what kind of houses they're in the area. But he came out to me.
The windows had a little more articulation. They would fit better with the form of the house.
I saw the list of materials, but I don't know if that means they meet our standards or like, how do we know that? Is that,
It's, the specifics aren't outlined in the code.
Okay.
It's really just making sure it's not.
it's
too
not purple
similar or
and
dissimilar.
lime orange,
Exactly.
yeah, lime green,
That's
yep.
not crazy.
Yep, no, it looks.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve the materials and the appearance as presented tonight.
And contained in the draft resolution provided by council.
Well, we have to approve your resolution also. We can, but approving the resolution will approve the materials and the appearance,
Yes.
correct? Okay.
My appearance.
So that's my motion.
Oh, I'll second that.
All in favor? You're done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you all.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Take care.
Hope at the next meeting, if it's winter time, I mean, be in Florida a little bit.
Are you gonna be in Florida?
Sometimes I wanna go, yeah.
Are you the builder
Mother
or-
has-
I can shovel my
I used to
driveway.
live, but
You're not the builder.
too old for that.
Okay.
No, my son is basically, but
Okay,
we're working together.
okay. Okay, good luck with the
Good.
project.
Okay, thanks. Nice meeting you all tonight. Thanks so much.
So I'll make a motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor?
That's nice. I get some prejudice.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good night.
Take care.
Bye.
guys.